Our tax system is awful. The tax code, this is part of it, is unreadable. This is a third of it. And this is just the beginning. The regulations that go on to explain these three books total 75,000 pages. Now, some taxes are necessary. There is a cost to government, and we need to pay for that somehow. But it's outrageous that we have to spend endless hours figuring out what we owe. And the taxes are so complex, most Americans now pay someone for help. And it's outrageous that this is filled with special breaks for certain politically connected people. And those breaks make our economy less healthy and less fair. We should just throw out the whole tax code and start over with something simpler, something understandable. Steve Forbes has tirelessly pushed that idea for years. And you failed miserably.
We're still trying to persuade, John, and every April 15th we get more support. And I think in the 2016 elections it's going to be out at the forefront. There's a growing consensus. I think it'll be on the table in 2017 in a way that hasn't been for almost 30 years.
What makes you say you're getting more support?
Even Democrats now realize this code is indefensible. Even on the Simpson-Bowles Commission, they bought on the idea if you declutter the code, you can cut tax rates across the board. There's no group in America, other than maybe lobbyists, who defend this code.
Not even tax accountants? All right, but simpler I get. But why flat? Flat means that everybody pays after a certain point. Poor people don't pay income tax, but then everybody pays the same. But that's not the most complex part of the code.
Well, if you have more than one tax rate, then you open it up for politicians to clutter the code again. After 1986, where they made a stab at simplification, two tax rates, 15% and 28%. 4 years later, there's a third rate. Bill Clinton added two more, and we're off to the races. And we have had 14,000 changes since 1986. And so with a single rate, everyone knows if you're doing something. Today, you can make a change in the code. 6 months later, people may discover what actually happened.
Now, you say if we had a flat tax, this would help charitable giving. But I would lose the deduction for charitable giving. So how would that help?
Because Americans, one, don't need to be bribed to give, and history shows that when Americans have more, they give more. Charitable giving in terms of dollars, not in terms of hours volunteered, roughly 2% of GDP, been that way even before we had the income tax. In the 1980s, when the top rate got cut from 70% down to 28%, charitable institutions, especially colleges, went berserk. But what happened was, not only did charitable giving go up, but the rate of growth went up. When people have more in this country, they give more.
So even though people say, oh, I get a deduction for this, I'm going to give to charity, and I take my deduction, they give anyway without it.
Sure they do. It's been that way. Go back to the 19th century. We've always been doing this.
You say it would encourage home ownership. Not that I'm certain that's good, but the real estate lobby is wedded to these mortgage deductions because they say that encourages home ownership. You get rid of that, it'll hurt home ownership.
Well, if you have real lobbyists in Washington, they have to have a rationale. But the fact of the matter is, again, when people have more, they will buy a house. They don't need to be bribed by the government to do it. And we've had growing home ownership in this country for a long time. When you try to stimulate home ownership artificially, you get the kind of disaster we had several years ago.
In your ideal world, with the flat tax, it would be on a postcard. You could just fill out one postcard?
One sheet of paper, postcard, or a few keystrokes if you're onto your PC.
And a couple countries,
or Apple.
a couple countries have this. Estonia has a flat tax of 21%. So the form is 1 page long, takes 5 minutes to complete. But Estonia is a new country.
Over 30 countries around the world. Vladimir Putin, who peaked early, put this in a 13% rate back in 2000 when Russia had a tax code that made ours look simple. And within a couple of years, revenues doubled. Hong Kong's had a variation for 60 years. One of the most prosperous pieces of real estate on earth, even though it was dirt poor 60 years ago, now booming.
You're fighting history pushing this. The first 1040...
Americans' existence was fighting history. We are the only invented nation on earth, so it's part of our tradition to fight what everyone else does.
But I look at how this stuff, I threw one, there are more to come, how it's grown. When the first 1044 pages, including the instructions, today it's 176 pages. The tax rate, 1% in today's dollars if you made $500,000, 6% if you made $11 million. We've come a long way.
It went berserk almost from the beginning because of the First World War. And even after 2 world wars, politicians have discovered an income tax is a money machine. They're not going to give it up easily. And so let's go and have a simplified code. That would be a huge step in the right direction. Half the lobbying in Washington revolves around this beast. And let's kill it and start all over again.